Welcome back, Tribe. I have one here that says how America messed me up. It's basically a compilation of people that have traveled overseas and are seeing the shocking differences, both in quality of life and culture.
If you're an American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up? I'll go first. I live in Warsaw, Poland now, but I always stay in touch with what's happening in the US, and I happened to hear about that Las Vegas shooting when someone opened fire on a bunch of concert goers. And it was very tragic news. But that day, I also went to the movies, so I was already in a kind of weird mental state. And when I left the movies, I got on the tram again in Warsaw, and I saw this guy kind of being sketchy and acting weird in the last seat. I kept eyeing him the whole time, and he had his jacket open and he was holding something inside. He was hiding it. And I thought, my first American thought was it's a gun or a knife or some kind of weapon, and I need to move away as soon as possible. So I kept looking at him the whole ride, and then he takes it out, and it was a beer can. He was sipping it and hiding it during the tram ride. That's what happens in Poland, not guns, not knives. And I started crying and laughing at the same time because that's when I realized, wow, that's messed up.
So I've been living in Spain for the last 2 years, and a little over a year ago, I was uninsured. I didn't have health insurance for about 2 months. And unbeknownst to me, in that short period of time, I got sick enough to where I needed to go to urgent care. And when I arrived, I explained to the women at the front desk that I didn't have insurance and that I would be paying for everything out of pocket. And they were aghast. They were just like, oh my God, it's going to be so expensive. You shouldn't have to pay all that amount. And I was like, look, I don't have insurance and my face is the size of a football and I can hardly open my mouth. I clearly need to see a doctor. And the total for my urgent care visit, along with 8 weeks of antibiotics, was €100. And that was expensive to them. And I was in my...
It's shocking when you actually get to experience that overseas. Americans can't fathom the cost of healthcare. Even in Dubai, this is my personal experience. I got an ear infection from swimming in a pool in Dubai. Couldn't sleep. It got pretty bad over the next few days. Went to the emergency room, saw a doctor, the nurse, got prescribed medication, and booked with a specialist for the next day. The very next day, I go see the specialist. I see 2 different specialists, and I have them perform multiple tests beyond what was needed, of like showing me with a camera in my ear the inflammation, being prescribed even more medicine, an antibacterial and an antifungal, and sent back on my way, all in the same day. I spent less than $300 out of pocket, just going in straight medical tourism style, like all you show is your passport. $300. That's all it costs to be seen at the emergency room by a doctor, a specialist, another specialist, and having them perform like 3-4 tests on me each, just to see the structure of my ear. Because I explained a backstory about how I messed my ear up flying when I had sinus issues after getting influenza. Less than $300, guys. And everything was completely finished within 2 days. And no waiting in line like crazy stuff at a hospital. Everything was extremely clean, sterile hospital environment. Even the vending machine at the hospital was one of those vending machines that have nothing but fresh oranges. And like you get it to make you orange juice. It takes the orange, puts it down, peels it, squeezes it for you. So you have freshly squeezed orange juice. It wasn't Kit Kats. It wasn't Reese's. It wasn't chocolate and bad shit, processed food. It was an orange juice machine. Mind blowing.
My brain prepared to spend 6-7 times that amount for that one visit and for that one round of medicine.
When I was in high school, I was a lifeguard, and during my lifeguard training, they taught us that before we even administer first aid or CPR, we had to ask for consent to avoid being sued. Now, fast forward a couple of years, and I'm in London as a waitress, and my company sends me to go do CPR training. And while I'm there, they go over the same stuff that I learned in the States, but I notice that they're completely glossing over this one particular area. So I raise my hand and I ask, what are the laws here? Like, how do you avoid being sued if something goes wrong? To which every single person in the room starts laughing at me. It says, oh, you're American, right? Yeah, no one here is going to sue you for trying to save their life.
So I started my new job in the Netherlands. This was 3 years ago, and I was going through the company policy the first week. And I got to the section about leave, and they have a holiday leave, like PTO, and then they had sick leave in 2 different areas. And I was reading about sick leave, and I turned to my coworker, and I was like, I don't understand. Like, it talks about like the requirements for sick leave and like doctor notes, like after 3 days, but how many sick days do we get a year? And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, how many are there? It doesn't say. She's like, it's just if you're sick, you're out. I'm like, I don't understand. She's like, it's unlimited. It's just if you're sick, you take a sick day. She was confused. I was shocked. There's a moment I realized we're fucked up in America and how we deal with people being sick with work.
So during the first lockdown, we have an elderly neighbor and we would go and check in on her every once in a while and like get her groceries if she needed. And progressively, she started not be able to breathe very well. And we knew it wasn't COVID because she had it before. But like at one point, it was like she couldn't even get to the door without like literally not being able to breathe and having to sit down. So my partner decided that we needed to call an ambulance for her and get her to the hospital pronto. And when he told me that he was going to call an ambulance, the first thing that I said was, "Are you sure? Can she afford an ambulance? Like we could just drive her." And it wasn't until my partner looked at me like, and that it clicked that, oh, that's not a worry here. And then I went upstairs and cried because it really smacked me in the face that as Americans, we are conditioned to not worry about someone's health first, but to worry about whether or not they can financially afford to see a doctor and get help.
Literally everything. When I lived in America, I thought I had it all, or that we were better off than like most countries. You know, we're the greatest country on earth, the American dream. But then I moved to Ireland, and upon arriving here, they explained certain things to me. Here in Ireland, you receive this thing called child benefit, which most developed nations have except for the US. And you receive a monthly check for each child. Doesn't matter what your income is. Children here get free healthcare until they're 6. Also, if you're pregnant, your healthcare is free. Also, I'm about to start my master's degree here, and it pisses me off thinking about the fact that I went into...
So look, this is what the text that she's writing. Hold on.
Also, if you're pregnant, your healthcare is free.
It says it cost over $100,000 to give birth in America.
Also, I'm about to start my master's degree here, and it
And she spent $120K on colleges.
pisses me off thinking about the fact that I went into college debt for a degree in America, and what I pay here for a master's degree in Ireland doesn't even compare.
Yeah, for example, I was talking to my uncle and his daughter is in school here, and the cost, when he was telling me, he's like, yeah, there's some things that she got a scholarship and everything's paid for by the state, of course, subsidized. And like, if we had to pay out of pocket, I was prepared to. And I was thinking like, damn, it must be a lot of money. What are you talking about? It's like a couple $100 a semester. That's a lot of money to them. You're paying tens of thousands of dollars. Your book alone for the semester that they force you to get sometimes is like $600, $700. And all they did was they modified 2 or 3 pages and they considered a new book that you must get and they force it on you. Bro, the system in America is just designed to extract maximum cash out of you. It's not for your benefit.
It just pisses me off that I was struggling and slaving for a dream that never existed, and I thought it was normal.
Bingo.
So in the US, I regularly get pneumonia. Sometimes I get like pneumonia and bronchitis, but pretty much all, like clockwork, I get it. I had just moved to Scotland for my master's, and I was coming down with a respiratory infection like I do every year. It was just the early onsets of pneumonia, but like normally I wait to the point of where I'm like literally unable to breathe before I go to the doctor because it's expensive in the US. Well, here I was like, you know what? I'm here. I paid for the NHS. Let me go get it. Saw a doctor, gave me a prescription. I went to the pharmacy to pick up my medication, something that I literally would not be able to afford with my minimum wage job and being a full-time student. They gave it to me for free because it was necessary, and I almost cried in the pharmacy. Like tears were welling in my eyes.
So I don't live abroad anymore, but for half of 2018, I lived in Germany, and I have so many stories. The town that I lived in had like a main plaza area, and there was a cafe in that plaza. So a couple of my other American friends and I decided to try it out one day, and there was a construction site nearby. We heard a really loud bang, and, we kind of assumed that someone had fired a gun, and so we, ducked for cover, and then we were looking around frantically, trying to find, a place that we could run to or hide to get out of the situation, and then we realized that no one had shot a gun. No, it was a loud bang from the construction site. That's it. That's all it was. We'd been speaking in English, and we all have really obvious American accents, so all the Germans around us gave us these really sad looks like, oh, these poor, poor Americans.
So just for a little context, I live in Latvia now, but when this happened to me, I was working in the UK as a bartender. And my coworkers and I were talking about gun violence in the US, and they were kind of making jokes like, oh, I'm surprised you graduated and you didn't get shot first and stuff like that. And I guess I was trying to defend it. So I was saying, it's not as bad as the news makes it seem. I only know one school that had an active shooter and had to go into lockdown. And, for me, I only had
one gun threat in high school, and it was just a threat, and one when I was in elementary school. And then my coworkers kind of looked at me like, "You what? And you think that's normal?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's not even that bad."
Oh, when I first moved to New Zealand, all my friends were German au pairs. And at one point I was talking about the Pledge of Allegiance. And they were like, "Celeste, what are you on about? What on absolute fuckery are you talking about?" And I was like, you guys didn't have to swear loyalty to your country before you started school?"
Okay, I have it.
As an immigrant to the U.S., I actually like the Pledge of Allegiance. It was cool. I don't know why they got rid of it. I think everybody should be pledging allegiance to the flag especially kids. Man, it was tight. It was a cool exercise. Before class started, you pledge allegiance. It was cool. And you memorized it. Why is it so unpopular to be patriotic today? Like, everything's going to shit because people don't care about their country anymore.
Another one. When I was studying in Spain, we had our orientation the first week of classes, and our program director sat us all down and had to explain our health insurance to us and how it worked. And basically it worked that you paid like €1,000 for the semester and you got health insurance, like free health insurance for everything, covered everything.
It's not free. It's €1,000 and it covers you for the whole semester. Everything. How amazing is that?
And she had to sit us down and she had this big group of Americans in a room and she was like, "Listen, if you are sick, go to the doctor." We were all like, "Yes." And she was like, "No, like Americans don't go to the doctor. You won't go to the doctor when you're sick. So I have to tell you every year to do this." And still kids will just put off going to the doctor because you're used to just like pushing through illness. No matter what it is, I don't care if it's a cold, go to the doctor. And she had to actually like spell that out for us.
I'm a U.S. citizen currently living in Costa Rica. We have to be careful about the use of the word American since the Americas are continent. Anyway, I have so many examples of how the U.S. fucked me up, specifically Florida. We got to Costa Rica the second weekend in November, obviously still deep in the throes in the U.S. with COVID. And coming from Florida, where there's so many anti-maskers and COVID deniers, it was surreal to go to these establishments here where everyone's following the Ministry of Health's rules. There's hand
I wonder how she feels about these statements now.
washing stations outside of every establishment. There are people taking your temperature to go into grocery stores and certain restaurants. People are giving you distance. Everyone is compliant with masks. And I found myself so defensively postured, ready to argue because I had gotten into so many arguments in Florida with anti-maskers and COVID deniers.
She's not making it sound good.
When I first graduated university about 11 years ago, I got a job at a French market research firm in Chicago. And so they had offices all over the place. And I worked with a lot of people in Canada. And I remember one of my colleagues just was like gone one day and I hadn't heard from her for a while. And I just thought she got fired. Around a year later, she comes back to work and I find out that, she had a child. And she had been off for a year for her maternal or parental leave. And I was like, what? You get a whole year off? I mean, Americans, if they're lucky, get like 12 weeks. I remember a lot of teachers from when I was a kid would save up their vacation days year over year if they knew they were going to have a kid so that they could actually take off a few months and they'd have to use all of their vacation days to do this. It's just mental to me that America considers itself a family-based society and like can't even give parents a good start.
So
that good start, man, is key. Exactly what he said. America is not a family-based society. It isn't. It's a money-based society. All that matters is the all-powerful dollar. Anything else is thrown to the wayside. That's why when you come overseas, you're shocked at how family-oriented. This is one of the shocking things I've seen, especially even in Dubai. You would think it's like a degenerate place and all the stereotypes you hear about Dubai. I'm sure all that stuff happens in certain circles, but it's extremely family-oriented city. You should go walking around Dubai, go around the Dubai marina. Go everywhere and see how many families there are, kids playing in the little playgrounds that are made everywhere. I mean, the underpasses of bridges in America are full of tents and homeless people. The underpasses and bridges of Dubai are pristinely kept and integrated, turned into a playground because they're always shielded from the sun. So people from the city take their kids out there in a nice playground with brand new equipment, everything. How shocking is that? Look up any underpass in America and tell me what you see. Then go to Dubai and look at the underpass and you'll see families, kids playing, extended families, watching the kids, nannies, stuff like that. It's wild, man.
For me, it was a few different times while I was living in Australia. One time with the various shootings that we have here in the States, my boss came to me and he was like, "Are you okay? How are you feeling? Do you need some time off?" And I was like, "Why?" And he was like, "Because I heard about the shooting that happened back in the States." I had to sit there and have an honest moment with myself and him to realize that I had built up a numbness to all the shootings because they happen all the time. So that sucked. Number 2. I have horrific cramps. I always have. They make me pass out. I throw up. I've been in the emergency room I don't know how many times at this point. It's just how it's been. I fought against it, but I finally had my roommate take me to the emergency room, and my total was $100 when I left. As someone who was only on a working holiday visa and not a $2,000 bill like it would have been in the States.
Mm-hmm.
One night in mid-November, I woke up. I was having really bad chest pains. And I was like cold sweating and everything, all the symptoms of a heart attack. And I was sitting there in my bathroom like, should I call 112 for an ambulance? It's going to be so expensive. There was a moment I literally thought about riding my bicycle to the hospital because it's about a 10-minute bicycle ride away from my apartment. I called the ambulance in the end. It was completely covered by my insurance. After I had the heart attack in the hospital, it was around 5 or 6 in the morning when I woke up. And I remember the first thing I thought was, I need to get my phone. I have to tell my boss I can't come into work today. I mean, the first thing wasn't like calling my mom. It was literally calling my work because I didn't want to get fired. I wasn't going to get fired in the Netherlands for that.
Oh, I've got a couple. So I'm from Los Angeles and now I live in Austria. And basically when I first started working...
I don't know if I've told you guys the story, but my uncle had a heart attack too shortly after getting something. And his hospital bill was $1 million. He had a heart stent put into him. $1 million. Best healthcare in the world.
We're here. They were like, you got 25 days vacation, Fridays off early, and if you're sick, don't come into work. And I was just like, I was floored. Because in the US, you only get 10 days vacation and like 5 sick days, and you don't get 5 days off early. You better work your ass until it's 9 p.m. On top of all of that, all my friends here have like 2 masters, 3 PhDs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, because education here is actually free. Amazing. What an amazing concept. In addition, I have yet to see a large homeless community out in the open here in Austria because the government actually offers some social support, a lot of social support. In LA, you have villages, streets, blocks full of homeless people because our government doesn't care about us. And here, people like don't measure their worth off the car they drive.
Okay. So I live in New York now, but I used to live in England. And one time I was out at this bar with my friends, and these 2 cops walked by. And one of my friends was like, "Oh, I wonder why there are cops out right now." And I looked at the cops, and I got really confused. And I was like, "Those are cops?" And my friends were like, "Yeah." And I was like, they don't have guns. And everyone was like, why would they have guns? They were like so aghast at that question. And I was realized in that moment that and learned that guns, there are so few guns in the UK, and it's such not an issue that like the everyday cop does not carry a gun.
And look what's happening to the UK.
And I was just, there are houses in America that have seen more guns in them than a fresh vegetable. It blew my fucking mind. I think about it all the time. I hate guns so much. I hate guns so much.
Yeah, we can tell, my friend.
Okay, so I'm not currently living abroad, but I did live in Australia for a few months. And one night while I was there, I got a little bit too crazy, and I ended up on public transportation without a phone. And I had to find my way back to my apartment, and I got lost. And while I got off the tram to get onto a different tram to take me home, a middle-aged gentleman came up to me, and I immediately went into attack mode, and I was like going to kill him. And he was like, no, I was just going to tell you which tram to take to get back to Preston. And that was when I realized that in Australia, I didn't need to be afraid. Like, granted, take precautions, but I didn't need to be afraid of every man. But in America, I still am.
I could do so many of these. Okay, I'll just pick one. So I lived in China for 11 years. I worked with Chinese people, but also people from all over the world. So this one day I was talking to a guy from the UK. I don't remember how we got on this topic. We're talking, and I must have said something about like, yeah, I wouldn't want to burden somebody with my problems, you know? And I won't forget this. It's changed how I think about this issue and interact with people. And he goes, It's so weird that Americans think that by talking about your problems, you're bothering somebody else. Like you're putting your problems on them. That's not how it works. I'm not any worse off if you tell me you're having a bad day or you're depressed.
Culture shocks. The only way to describe it. You won't feel that until you go yourself. Until then, some of you got the wool over your eyes thinking you're on the greatest country on earth and will be seething when you see how other societies are run. This one says, Americans, just for your information, average cost of an ambulance, 10 feet or 10 miles, doesn't matter, is approximately $1,200. This was 2 years ago too. Average cost of COVID treatment, $34,000 to $45,000. No insurance, out of network, $70,000 plus. If you're put on a ventilator, the average is $1,500 per day. So just keep that in mind when the phony patriot in your life tries to brag about our healthcare system being the best in the world, or not to worry about COVID or wealth inequality. This one says, I genuinely feel sorry for the middle and lower class Americans. I don't feel sorry for the rich ones. No sarcasm. Imagine as a parent having to consider how to dress your child to help him blend easily in case of a school shooting. What in the world? I'm from the UK, but have lived/worked in many countries growing up and as an adult. Recently, I spent 2 weeks in the US to coordinate staff training for a new office in Ohio. After the first training session, a guy came up to me and said, so how does it feel to finally be in a free country? Cue the eagle sounds roaring and M4 is firing off. What the fuck is a Unbelievable. Oh, this is interesting. America has never been great. It just had great marketing. Well, not in recent times, but 1776 was goated. As I says, I remember seeing a YouTube video where a Dunkin' Donuts employee was fired for giving leftovers to homeless people. I was startled at first because the dude was being kind and generous to offer leftovers to the homeless, which would otherwise be dumped in the trash. However, someone commented that the homeless people might sue the company by falsely claiming to be sick due to the leftovers given to them. You can't even be kind in America. Shaking my head. I live in the Caribbean in a so-called third world/developing country where healthcare is basically free for all ages. Ambulances too. There are paid private hospitals, but all public hospitals throughout the island are free. It's sad that such a rich country doesn't offer healthcare to its citizens. Yeah, same thing in Romania. I think the healthcare here personally is shit. I would never even go to get treated for anything at all in a public hospital. I consider them decrepit and below the standard of quality care that you would need. However, if you're here living as an expat or you have a Western salary, there are plenty of private hospitals that look tip top, my friend. And that's what all the wealthy here do anyways, or the people that want great treatment, they go to the private hospitals, But the fact is you can get treated at the public hospital, which is what majority of the people do. It's just if you have extra income, you go private. And it's the same in America. Private care in America is way better than public care. You get what you pay for. That applies to everywhere in the world. Yeah, the standard of care is much higher in America compared to where I live personally in Eastern Europe. Definitely it is. Like a public hospital in America absolutely shits on a public hospital in Romania. It's not even close. But once you go private, the difference will disappear. And when they mean private, they don't mean spending American money on healthcare. It's just literally like $300 for a checkup and this test and these results and this physical, blah, blah, blah. It's not like you saw the doctor and it costs $300 and that's it. You're sent home and come back for the specialist. That's $5,000, $10,000. This surgery is $30,000, $50,000. No, it's just slightly more expensive than the public care would be. Otherwise, it's insane. Interesting question nonetheless. For those that are overseas right now, please let us know in the comments below how America messed you up or the cultural differences that you've seen in your personal lives. I talk about it in my channel all the time, guys. It's the videos that pop up here at the end. It's the second channel. I do walk-arounds in Bucharest, just sharing the differences, life overseas, what you could expect. And if you want to see more of that, go ahead and watch some of those videos and subscribe and you'll see how clean it looks here. I'll tell you about the physical changes you'll have from eating the food, psychologically, how it is to be at a high trust, at ease society, just walking around day-to-day stress levels are super low, yada, yada, yada. Man, the list goes on. Everything these people mention, it's insane. If you haven't already, sign up for the private community. Join us on some calls, man. Would look forward to speaking with you and everybody that's been doing the private consults. Conversations have been amazing. Appreciate you guys. All that supports the channel directly. We don't advertise whack-ass skincare products that no one actually uses or razors to shave your balls or whatever else. So thanks, fellas. We'll see you on the next one.